we're going to get started. We've got a lot of good things to cover today. Like I said earlier, I'll be the professor for today. My name is Patrick Hine, and today's class will be all about the automatic camera preset recall and the ways you can use it to enhance the experience of both the folks in the classroom, but especially those that are remote students trying to get the best out of their remote learning experience. And our goal today is to provide as much learning equity for those that are remote as there are in the room. So with that, another quick reminder for those that have just joined, use that Q&A at any point during this webinar. We've got lots of folks from QSE and myself on the Q&A monitoring, so please don't hesitate to pop something in there. So class, before we get started, are there any questions? Yes, Bonnie.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, we learned about the Q-SYS automatic camera preset recall plugin. Is this going to be just like a review of that? Or are we going to learn new things? Like, I heard that this plugin can work with any mic.
Listen, you should stop gossiping. For one, it's just not, it's a terrible habit to have. And yes, the focus of this webinar is going to be about new features. We recently released a version 2.0 of the plugin. And so today's demonstrations are going to focus on those new features, although we will give a quick overview of basically everything that the plugin can do and cover. So great question. Thank you, Bonnie. A+. Yes, Jacob in the back.
Yeah, I just changed major to Q-SYS recently, so I'm still a little new at this. I was just wondering if the plugin is only meant for classrooms or does it work well with other applications? And like, what else are we going to be learning today?
Another good question, B+.
Oh.
Yes, this is a classroom setting, obviously, and we've promoted this webinar to higher education. But if you're here wanting to learn about how to implement this in a conference room scenario, rest assured that this plugin works great for basically any high-value collaboration space that uses Q-SYS cameras, microphones, and the UC application of your choice. Let's go over today's quick agenda. I'm going to give a quick little presentation on features. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because we want to focus on demos. And in fact, if you haven't already guessed it, this is a demo. Yes, all of the switching that you've been seeing thus far has been controlled by the plugin itself. And so watch for it as we go. After my lecture, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Jason, who's going to walk around the room, talk about the gear that's controlling everything. And then we're going to turn it over to Nate, who's going to give us a look at the back end. And throughout today's presentation, of course, we're going to be doing silly little demonstrations veiled in very badly written sketches. So with that, I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to share my screen. Oh yeah, Jason.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. When is the plugin going to be available to download? Also, I'm leaving class early. I have to get to a haircut appointment. Will I be able to watch a recording of this session anywhere after the webinar?
I can take that one. So yes, Jason, actually the plugin is available now through Q-SYS Designer Asset Manager, which is, as you all know, is available in Q-SYS Designer software. We will definitely have a recording of this on our website in just the next few days, and we'll also send you out an email so you can watch the recording whenever you'd like. And just a reminder too, again, that if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A function in the Zoom. Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Thank you, Christine. All right. I'm going to quickly share my screen. And if those that still have their camera on, can you nod your head to tell me that you can see them? Excellent. All right. So let's start off with a quick overview for those that might be new to the Q-SYS platform. Everything that we're demonstrating today is on behest of a software-based feature. This is not driven by any additional hardware. In fact, this feature was not present but a year ago, but because we run a software-based platform, we're able to do things at the software level that we wouldn't usually be able to do and would usually require hardware. And we do that because we've based our platform on Intel processing, which really gives us as much control headroom as we need to add things, again, at that software level. So it was a good choice that we made over 10 years ago when we standardized on Intel, and we've never looked back. It was the best choice we ever made. Now, let's talk about, as Jacob mentioned, the new stuff. So what you're looking at right now is a diagram that's showing not just the Sennheiser Team Connect 2 microphone, but any discrete microphone can use this plugin. And as you can see by this diagram, there are microphones hanging in the room, but you can use gooseneck microphones like I've got here. And basically what the plugin is looking for is that gate to open and close. And based on the presence of that microphone signal, it will trigger a zone to be activated by Q-SYS. And it basically triggers a predetermined spot that you want that camera to zoom in on and to be, and then makes that change. But that's not to say that version 2.0 doesn't actively support the new features in the Sennheiser Team Connect 2 microphone. When we first released this plugin, it only supported horizontal changes in voices. So it would track when the speaker was either on the left or the right, but at the time it wouldn't track whether or not that person was sitting or standing. And that's a pretty important thing for a classroom setting, because sometimes the teacher wants to sit, sometimes they want to stand. And realistically, as the integrator or system administrator, you should plan for both of those scenarios. And that's exactly what this new feature in the plugin is going to do. You can identify a sitting and a standing position, and then have those cameras switch. And then the last feature is the addition of support for secondary cameras. Now, we're in a high value space right now where we want to make sure that all hundreds of you that are on this call may or may not want to see the shift and the swivel of that PTZ camera when it's moving from one zone to another. So we enabled the ability to have a second camera in the room. And what happens is, if that zone moves from the person that looks like it's at this whiteboard, and then somebody else in the room that's across the room starts talking, the system will recognize that another voice is speaking, and then activate that second camera, get it in position, and then do the switching. So the net result on the far end is a seamless transition from one zone to another, and they never see any of that movement. You save people a lot of risk of getting seasick from that PTZ moving all over the place. So a very, very cool feature. It is in beta. It's still being worked on, but it works pretty good right now. So the last thing that I want to mention, as you download this plugin, you might also find available the sample design. And this really takes you through a very easy narrative step-by-step process of how to set up the plugin. So you don't have to start, we're all students. Starting from that blank page is pretty scary. And so this sample design asks you questions, and then based on your room type and which microphones you're using, it takes you through a step-by-step. Very, very handy thing to do, especially if you're new to Q-SYS. Before we get to the demo, I do want to remind folks what the plugin does and what it doesn't do. And what it doesn't do is facial tracking. As I mentioned earlier, the way that the plugin works is you identify zones before, as you're commissioning the room, you identify those places, and the microphone is triggering that movement to a very predetermined spot. What it's not doing is tracking random faces around the room and actively trying to place that camera in the right place. I think we've all seen that go well in some cases, and you can also see it go pretty poorly if the AI is not activating well. And so in a space like this where you've got lots of people in the room and it has to be right, and you want to fine tune those zones to a very precise place, the automatic camera preset recall function and the fact that it is using predetermined places is quite handy. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jason, who's going to walk through the room. There we go.
Thanks, Professor. So yeah, I just want to take a few brief moments to talk a little bit about the necessary components to successfully deploy the automatic camera preset recall plugin. So first off, we need a Q-SYS system. Our classroom here at QS University is running on a Q-SYS core, which is managing the audio, video, and control for the space. Second, this plugin was designed to work with Q-SYS conference cameras. And I have a pair of those above me right now, which are giving me my classroom shots for our far end students. So we do have a primary and secondary camera set up here. The secondary camera is not necessary to have a successful deployment of the plugin. However, it does help reduce some of the unwanted movements from being seen by our far end students. The room we're in today is about 20 by 30 feet and can fit approximately 16 students. So on each side of the room, we have another PTZ IP camera. These give us our alternate angles of our presenters or our students, whichever you choose. For microphones, as Patrick mentioned earlier, this plugin is compatible with any microphone, whether it be a network microphone or just a discrete fixed non-network microphone. So we're actually going to be demonstrating two different microphone sets today. One will be our discrete setup. Each student station has a gooseneck mic connected to a Q-SYS IO device. And there's also a Goose lectern mic for our professor as well. The second set we'll be demoing is the Sennheiser TCC2, which is what the plugin had originally been developed for. That TCC2 is what I'm talking to you on right now. That is allowing me to walk around the room and recall a preset unencumbered by a microphone. So for clear of the room, we also have another set of PTZ IP cameras. One is primary, one is secondary. This one's going to give us our wide shot of the room and a professor. Or it can give us, a few alternate angles should you have a presenter such as myself walking around the room. So the last component that you need, of course, is the plugin itself. That is available to download now on Q-SYS Designer Asset Manager, which is accessible through Q-SYS Designer software. And I'll send it back to you, Professor.
Thank you so much. Jason mentioned it. We're basically running a rather unrealistic system right now for the sake of the demo. So if you don't mind, James, could you toggle us back from the Sennheiser microphone to my discrete system for this next demo? And I'm going to share the screen right now. Before we hit the demo, I'm going to quickly see if there's any good Q&A. Let's take a look here. Nothing that can't be addressed by our folks. Okay, so let's actually, I'm going to move on to the discrete demo. So here's a couple things to look at here. So as you're watching this demo, again, watch for the automatic camera switching based on where the voice is coming from. You should recognize that there's no PTZ movement visible on that far end. And you should also look for minor interruptions. And when I say interruptions, I'm talking about sneezing or somebody talking in a very brief, way, one or two words. You don't want those kinds of things to trigger a camera zone to go. The camera would be swinging around all day, and you really don't want that. And so the plugin makes allowances for, only sustained speaking for that zone to be triggered. So you'll see a couple moments where some of our participants will say one word or two word, and theoretically it should not do any of that switching. And obviously you're going to see some of the finest acting that free webinars can provide. So with that, I've done my part. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And what we're going to do today is hopefully answer a time-honored question that's as old as time itself. Time, how many times can I say time? So many times. And that answer is a hot dog a sandwich? Is a hot dog a sandwich? Now, if you look up sandwich in the dictionary, it will say that a sandwich is defined as two pieces of bread with something like meat or peanut butter in the middle. So a buns of bread meets hot dog. Hot dog's a sandwich. Case closed. That'll be on the final exam. You're going to want to write.
I heartily disagree with you. Aside from the fact that you just truncated all of your words into one gibberish mess, I argue this: If you put 100 people on a pirate plank and they're gonna have to walk the plank of a pirate ship based purely on whether or not they can name any sandwich in the world, you know how many of them are gonna say hot dog? 0, not 1. You know why? Because they know. They know it's not a hot dog deep down. They're not going to risk their lives.
Yeah,
on that.
I have to agree with Nate. I mean, to put it a little more concisely, if you're going to go to a sandwich shop, you're not going to order a hot dog. If you go to a hot dog stand, you're not going to order a sandwich because it's a different category in people's minds. The people have spoken.
Yes, and the people, as history has proven, are always right. The louder you speak, the righter you are. And you get an F for making fun of my speech. Yes, Jacob.
Hey, have you heard of this guy named Joey Chestnut? Okay, so he's a competitive eater, and Joey Chestnut holds the world record for eating hot dogs. He ate 76 hot dogs in 10 minutes. Joey Chestnut eats 76 hot dogs.
A hot dog
Joey's
is a
first
sandwich,
name is actually
as defined by the U.S.
Joey is actually not a kangaroo.
and Abraham Lincoln. I'm tenured. And scene. Scene. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes. That was just masterfully executed. All right. So that was, again, one more time, that was the Discrete demo. If you logged in a little bit late, I think you're all probably clamoring to see how this works and how to set this up on the back end. Nate, can you take the reins and show us Q-SYS Designer software?
I sure can. All right, so I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully you are all seeing what I've got in front of me right now. This is just the world's simplest AEC system in Designer right now. I'm going to build this camera preset from scratch, just so you can see how little it takes to actually accomplish. Here's my AEC system. I got a couple of mics coming in from an IO device being processed by acoustic echo canceling, going through a little bit of processing, and then they're summed down into a single channel before they are sent to my far end caller. Meanwhile, the far end caller's voice comes in, that gets a little processing as well. That gets sent to our room's loudspeakers. And of course, that is also referenced out from the AEC. So that's, the phone call works. Let's add this camera preset to it. What I'm gonna do is drag my 2 cameras into the design. I do have to give them a unique name. I'm gonna call this one Cam 1. I'll call this one Cam 2. We will combine them with a camera router from our schematic elements library. And then we're going to send that one single USB connection out to a PC via the Core's video bridge. I actually have this connected with a USB cable to the laptop I'm on right now, so we'll be able to see those streams come in. In order for this camera router and for this mixer to be accessible by the plugin when I install it, they also need to have a unique name. So this is going to be a named component by having something other than the default name of camera router. I'm just going to call mine Mr. Router, and I'll call my mixer Mr. Mixer, and that will allow the presets to see those and select them as our viable options. Over here in the plugins, here it is, the automatic camera preset recall plugin. Just gonna drag that right in here for argument's sake. Right now, this is set at the default to work for the Sennheiser TCC2. I'm gonna change that to work for discrete mics because I'm using, these mic channels rather than the lobes up there. Only thing I need to do wiring wise is I need to make sure that it knows when the far end caller is talking, because when that far end caller is talking, we don't want to focus on someone in the room. We want to resort to a home screen or a home camera position where everybody's probably equally spread. So I'm going to expose the open pin of my far end caller's gate here and use that to drive the speaker signal. That way I know when the far end caller is talking, that open LED essentially lights up and says, hey, they're talking. So let's shut off the camera and let's go to a wide angle. That's pretty much all I have to do wiring wise. So I'm going to save this to the core and run. I've got a separate core that's on the table right next to me. It's got 2 cameras. It's literally sitting on top of it. Not a very realistic deployment. But I wanted something that was separate than all of the gear that's running the room that we're running this demo on. Just so you can see me hook this up without me having to take the whole system down to prove that it works. Okay, so I'm going to open up the plugin. And this does walk you pretty well through it. I'll show you the sample design in just a little bit that takes you even more step-by-step through it. But it's not terribly complicated. We really do kind of hold your hand. So what am I doing here? How many cameras do I have? I'm going to have 2 cameras. So first thing I do is define that I have 2 cameras. Scroll down a little bit. It's going to ask me, hey, which cameras are those? And because I have named them in my design, camera 1 and camera 2, those names pre-populate right here. I'm just going to define that camera 1 is camera 1, camera 2 is camera 2. Scroll down a little bit further. It needs to know which camera router you are using in order to direct these. Even if you only have a single camera in your design, you still need to have like a 1x1 camera router to make sure that passes through. And again, any named components that is a router will populate itself in this dropdown. Mine is Mr. Router. Now it knows which components to attach itself to. A couple more configuration options. How quickly do I want to swap between camera views? Anywhere between 1 second and 5 seconds is our default options. And then down here, if I wanted to define that default position for, again, when the foreign caller is talking or when there is a lot of crosstalk, for it to go to kind of a wide view, I could choose that here. I'm not going to do that because I'm not fully setting this up. I just want to show you the options. Next tab are where I'd actually define what my camera preset zones are. So first thing it needs to know is which mixer am I using? Once again, I named mine Mr. Mixer, so I can just tag it right there. Now, if I open up Mr. Mixer, it has actually already assigned some levels in here, like it's sidechain and things like that, to make sure that it will be ready to go as people start talking. Now, how many zones do I have? I've got 2 cameras. Let's just set this up really easily for 2 zones. So 2 different zones. Zone 1 is going to be on camera 1. Zone 2 will make it camera 2. I'm going to split this over to one half of the screen, and I'm going to pull up my Windows camera app so you can see the stream coming in from my core. There it is. So let's say I just wanted to get rid of Zoom, which is in my way. Oh no, I'm so loud. Stand by. I accidentally unmuted myself when I did that. All right. So let's see. Here's camera 1. I'm going to zoom in and we'll pick James. Congratulations. You're famous in the back row. Zoom in. He's going to be my camera 1 preset. Then I go back over to the plugin and say, all right, save. That is the setting for zone 1. You can see it looks like it's got a whole bunch of kind of weird coordinates in here. There's 3 bits of data in here. That's the pan information and the tilt information. So that's all that's really occurring here. If I want to do the same thing with camera 2, let's see, I could route camera 2 to my PC, and then we'll aim camera 2, and it's going to be focusing in on Jason's throat. Here, I'll pan over a little bit. It can be a Siobhan instead. There you go. Congratulations. You and the fire extinguisher are zone 2. You've never been so proud. And then again, back to the plugin, I might save this as my for zone 2. And it's just as easy as that. If I was going to use a secondary camera, these cameras are in the exact same physical location on the table. So I might literally just copy and paste these coordinates to save myself some time, since they're probably going to be about the same. I'd probably go back a little bit more and nuance that in just a bit, but you can see that assigning those positions is really quite simple. You just go through each zone, define which camera you're going to use and where it's going to aim at, and hit save. Not much more to it than that. But like I said, if what I did was even more complicated than you want to do, you might want to open up our sample design instead. This is the sample design that comes with the plugin when you download it. This really does take you even slower through it. It explains step by step. Hey, make sure that your cameras are connected to the router in this way. Make sure you choose this option. Are you using the microphone in a discrete mode or in Sennheiser mode? And then go down here. Here's some examples of how to plug it in. So hopefully you can't mess this up. I mean, I'm not saying you can't. That's not a challenge. Please don't try desperately to break it. But hopefully we got your back. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing. Throw it back to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Nate. So there's a lot of good questions. So I'm gonna take 5 minutes to address some of these questions. But first of all, I'm gonna address the 446 participants that are here. Thanks for coming. We're doing this live. We always do webinars live. It's performing without a net, and you've come during your morning or afternoon, and so just a thank you from me for always showing up. All right, so I'm gonna make a couple people stars. Brandon asks, is there an ideal place to to put these cameras. He essentially asks, do you have to put them side by side if you're using these primary and secondary? And the answer is no. You can have one in the front and one to the side. It activates the same way. So that's easy enough. No worries on that. There was some specific questions about certain brands of microphones and do we support it? And I'll remind you that essentially all Q-SYS is looking for is incoming audio. And so you can realistically use this on any microphone that you can get into Q-SYS. Great question, Ron. Let's see, Daryl asks how many cameras are supported in the plugin. 16 cameras can be supported in the plugin right now. Let's see. There was another question from Mark about camera vendors. Reminder that, again, we're showing a Q-SYS platform solution. And so you can only use Q-SYS cameras in this plugin. Let's see. Philip asks about gooseneck microphones. Are they supported? Yes, of course. We're using them right now. Christoph compliments us on the discrete design. Thank you. You're the best, Christoph. And yeah. Oh, there was asked about how do you set up, or what are the parameters that you can set the delay at? So I think you can set that a 1 to 5, I believe is that range. So in any case, that was Vincent. Thank you, Vincent. we're going to do one more demo. We mentioned that we are going to do another Sennheiser demo at the top of the webinar, and I'm going to make good on that promise. So James, if you don't mind switching to that Sennheiser microphone in our system. And I'm going to quickly show my screen. And in fact, I don't even know that I need to do that, because there's really only one thing on this slide. And that is what to look for in the Sennheiser demo. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the new things that we are showing in the plugin is the addition of using Sennheiser Team Connect 2 microphone's ability to sense the difference between a sitting or a standing position and activate that zone accordingly. So Bonnie, who's sitting in the front row with short blonde hair, look for her. She's gonna, at some point during this next skit, she's going to be sitting, and then she's going to be standing. And so watch for that. And other than that, again, all the switching is happening via the plugin. And in fact, this next sketch has far too much venom and hate. So I need Nate, if you don't mind. Can you take over this next?
Oh yeah, when venom and hate is required, that's my wheelhouse right there. This is a lecture that is very close to my heart, so I will be playing the professor. However, of course, at the top of every lecture, the first thing you want to do is check in with your remote participants. Remote participants, how are you doing? Everybody still alive out there?
I have ants. They're everywhere around me, and I really hate ants. I hate them.
Awesome. Not what I was asking for at all, but thank you very much. So the lecture, does pineapple belong on pizza? Yes or no? Bonnie, you're up first on this. If you get the answer right, you can leave early.
Awesome. Okay. Well, my answer is it doesn't really matter. If you care that much about it, then you can just have half with pepperoni and half with pineapple. Or you could buy 2 smalls instead of 1 large, or you could pick it off like everyone inevitably has to do.
Wrong. You're wrong. Sit down.
Wait, how can she be wrong?
She's wrong.
Well, no, I mean, this is a completely subjective topic, right? Like, there are plenty of people who like pineapple on their pizza. I like pineapple on my pizza.
No, you don't. You're wrong.
That's it. I'm not taking this abuse sitting down anymore, Professor Fancy Pants. You're getting a 1-star rating on Rate My Professor, and your track to tenure is tanked. Take that, alliteration.
Thank you for your intimidating heights, Bonnie, for that demonstration.
That's enough. That's enough. Q-SYS is a place of joy and happiness and love. Being so mean to each other. All right, that was the Sennheiser Team Connect 2 microphone demo. I'm gonna quickly shuffle back through some of these Q&A, see if I can address some of these. Is there a microphone maximum? I don't believe. I'm gonna actually, I think Caitlin's on the line. I'm gonna let her answer that one.
I am on the
Um,
line. I've answered it a couple of times.
Okay.
But a couple of people have asked, so it might be good for me to just voice it audibly now.
Yes, please.
If you're using the TCC2, we support up to 10 of those microphones, and each of those will support 20 zones. If you're using discrete microphones, we support up to 90 microphones, and each of those will get a zone per microphone. So depending on your implementation, you could have a varying level, but we support quite a few zones and quite a few microphones.
Hey, Caitlin, while I still got you, since you've been feverishly typing, would you mind addressing any of the topics that you've seen on multiple occasions? Pick a couple.
Yeah. I've also gotten a lot of questions about supporting third-party cameras. We currently do not support any third-party like NDI or third-party APIs with the plugin. That being said, we do have control pins for any control that is intrinsic to the plugin. So if you're any amount of Lua savvy, or you have some control scripting or control logic capabilities, you could theoretically expose control pins and use the base functionality of the plugin to drive third-party integration with non-Q-SYS CPTZ cameras.
Caitlin, I'm going to put you on the spot one more time. How many TCCs? Oh, no, it just asked how many TCCs are in the room. Great question. There's only one TCC is covering the entire room, and the room's about 20 by 30. And let me see if there's anything else that I can see.
Another good question that I'm looking at, someone asked about divisible space scenario with multiple USB endpoints to several codecs. I believe the sample design does have a working example of this, where if you have a couple of different spaces that are divided and then combined, we do have some example logic of how you might do that. Essentially, you would just use multiple versions of the TCC2 plugin and do some discrete switching between that. But we do support multiple space.
Great. I see a question. Is this supported on all cores? The answer is yes. There was a question about the networking setup that we have in the room, at least. We are using QLAN, and the QLAN and Dante recommended switch settings that come with our Q-SYS switch. So if you have apprehensions about switches, I would suggest purchasing one of those because that makes it really easy. Let's see. All right. Well, I'm not going to keep everybody online. I will say that we are going to send out a complete Q&A for everybody that attended and didn't attend. I just want to thank you one more time for joining us. We're at the top of our lecture. Class is dismissed. Thanks for joining us. Bye now.